All right. In today's episode, we're going into the ecosystem business model of the overall master plan. Here's a final view, but let's get back to exactly where we start. We're going to draw a cross section vertically and horizontally, find that center point, create the initial singularity sphere. And then we're going to go ahead with the seed of life cycle, 6 circles around the central one. This was the form that we use to create the last step. And then this step is a continuation. You'll see that every single step is a continuation on the previous. And then after the next step, there'll be a really cool deviation. So right now, we're essentially just adding another layer, another row of spheres around the initial one that I created. And with this, we're creating a form so that we could start filling in the responses for an ecosystem business model. So you come up with the governance model in the first step. The second step, you define what the problem and solution is. And then after having the problem and solution being clear, it's really important to say, okay, we know the problem. Here's a proposed solution. And here's a rough draft or a high level view of what a business plan can look like around that. So that's what these 4 quadrants, that's what these 7 spheres, that's what they're all about. I think it's really tough for people to get clear on what their business model is. Until I started doing this regularly, I started doing this every day, it was tough for me as well. So Groove 7 verse 0 chord, this is where we start off and we define you and need within the story circle. So we have OS3PI Yoga, again, it's our story, open source operating system. Sushumna, and since this is the 7th aspect of this, this is the chakra number 7 is that we're going to be diving into for this step. 144 5PI Mama is associated with the open source aspect of this, and this is Groove 7, my journey within the overall process. With the U related to 144, that is the satirical cultural creative. So that's who I am like selling this to in a sense. That's who the business plan is for, related to 144 5PI. Related to 369 my PI, community chord, that's 2.7.0 defined purpose. The U associated with that is AEC entrepreneurs. So architectural, engineering, and construction professionals who are working within a company who want to add something new. For 432 RPI, ecosystem business model is really all centered around small and medium enterprises. So that's the U associated with that. And then all of them have a shared need. And it's just a summary that effectively managing a business is overwhelming. After completing that, it's just a matter of filling in the spheres that are associated. So this central sphere is defined purpose. Within the quantum memoir, it is the purpose sphere, and within OS3, we call it defined purpose. So we write in the 3 different aspects related to you here, the audience. So it's satirical, cultural creatives, AEC entrepreneurs, and SMEs, small and medium enterprises. The sphere below that is where we're writing in the need. And within quantum memoir, this is the ground sphere, and we call it ground operations. So that's just the challenge. Effectively managing a business is overwhelming. For the first quadrant, we have Groove 7, Verse 1, Ecology. Again, this is where we set like the biomimicry standards for everything. For OS3PI, it's eukaryotic cell. In this step, it's the nucleus. 144 5PI, it's the planet, and we associate it with the core in this section. And then 369 MyPI, it's human nervous system. And 432 RPI, it's tree fruit. This is related to go and search within the Dan Harmon story circle. So for go, we have that we're going to be creating these symbiotic business ecosystem master plans as a response to the challenge that we have. And then search is just getting into, okay, what aspect of our overall process are we going to be mainly focused on? So that's going to be focused on chakra number 9. It's going to be focused on Groove 9, my journal. It's going to be focused on 0.9.0 own data. These are all just different ways to say the exact same step, the first step that we started off with, since we're just teaching people how to use this overall process. And then for each one of those, we're just saying exactly how we're going to be, exactly where we're going to be searching. So I'll show this in the spheres here. So again, this intent design is related to go, observe market is related to search. So within the Go sphere, we're just writing in the symbiotic business ecosystem master plan is what we're creating. And then in the search, all I'm going to say is, again, we're searching all the key aspects of 0.9.0 governance model, and then the actual companies that we're going to be going to search for solutions. So that's going to be Maven, Legacy Engineers, and RDB. And we'll be getting more into this in the story aspect, but that's it for now. Here in the second quadrant, we have Groove 7, Verse 2 Physiology. This is related to find and take within the journey. For find, it's what are we going to be finding out by going through this search? And we're going to have how to start your business ecosystem with a public-private partnership governance model. We think that's really important for people to understand. And then the takeaway is that people will have an efficient business process and more efficient influence over their community's rule of law. For each of the subsequent aspects here, so 144 5PI, 369 MyPI, and 432 RPI, find and take is associated with the actual tools that they'll be using and then the cost that we'll be taking as an exchange of value. So for 144 5PI, they're going to be using GitHub and Discord, and it'll be free documentation offered for them. For 369 MyPI, they'll be using FigJam within our cohort-based courses, and that'll be $90 for a 3-day course. Finally, we have 432 RPI. The tool they'll be using is all three, Notion, FigJam, and GitHub. And that'll be $900 for a 7-day course for us to come into a company to make this happen. So here in the Connect Partners sphere within Quantum Memoir, we just write in the find, the public-private partnership, and then the price for each. This third quadrant is Groove 7, Verse 3, Sociology. The main thing we need to know here with all my chicken scratch is that it's return and changed within the Dan Harmon story circle. So return is about what are we researching, what are we learning to improve our value proposition. So we're going to be learning about open source, APIs, public-private partnerships, and design build. And I came up with that because I looked back at the search aspect. So within the first quadrant, search was 0.9.0 governance model. And those terms I just covered were the most important things that I felt would be good to teach people on an ongoing basis related to governance models. Changed is about the story. So what's the creative story about all this? What's the story for individuals going through all this? And what is the story for the collective project? What is everyone going to be creating together? Ultimately, the main change that we have here is there's going to be an open source mixtape mythology where we're going to have a whole story centered around this. Express vision is the sphere related to quantum memoir for this return sphere. I just wrote in the groundwater recharge projects is the thing that we're really researching. And then open source, API, design build, and public-private partnerships will be the subsequent things that we're researching. For the refined story, this is the change. And then we have Poly's open source mixtape mythology. We'll be creating a script for that. And then the song for this is Canapé by Polo and Pan. Now to just bring it all together, effectively managing a business is overwhelming. So we're creating these symbiotic business ecosystem master plans to help people define a governance model for what they're doing. The main takeaway that they're going to get is that they're going to have these public-private partnership governance models. So specifically with these groundwater recharge projects that we'll be researching, we're going to create a whole story around that, all set to the backdrop of Polo and Pan.